おちんちん大好きですけど。
大好き?
はい。私と。
What kind of place is this?
Anime is a Japanese animation style that everyone has probably come into contact with in some point in their lives. My generation grew up with Pokemon, Digimon and Dragon Ball Z. And I guess most people have probably heard of one of these animes before. And if you've never watched anime yourself, you'll probably remember that one geeky kid in school that watched anime and that would Naruto run between classes. And while I guess that most people get into anime in their adolescence, I never really got into it. But that all changed when something happened to me recently. Something that changed my life dramatically. I got a full-time job.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
And ever since I started working full-time, I found out that I didn't have any energy left at the end of my workday. I didn't have any energy left to play video games or do other things that I used to do. I felt sad for quite a while. That is, until I discovered anime. In this video, I will share my journey into the world of anime with you. How did it all start for me? What did I watch? What are some of the quirks of anime? And finally, I will tell you about my favorite animes up until now. My story started one day when I was browsing the YouTube recommendations. And I saw this video pop up in my recommendations. With no real understanding of anime, I thought, this looks interesting. And what followed was this video by Gigguk, of which I will show you a small excerpt.
This show is just like, he wants to fuck his fucking sister, man. He just really wants. He really does.
おちんちん大好きですけど。
Hanson! Why don't you take a seat?
おちんちんなんて見たことあるの？
It's off the scale! You know what I'm saying? Off the scale!
I really urge you to watch this video if you just want to have a laugh. And after watching this video, I had laughed and I had fun. But this show also piqued my interest. I was actually interested to watch this so-called piece of trash. So, with no real expectations, with no real experience watching anime besides Dragon Ball and Pokemon, I watched the entirety of Eromanga Sensei. So really quickly, what is Eromanga Sensei? If you haven't caught on by now, Eromanga Sensei is really something else. I'm gonna set aside all the bullshit you don't need to know. The only thing you do really need to know is that basically the story is about a guy and his stepsister, Saguri Izumi. Saguri is a shut-in, which basically means that she doesn't want to leave her house or her room. And the story is basically about their bond as not blood-related brother and sister. The brother writes stories, and Saguri, which is later revealed, is the artist who draws the art for her brother's work. So I watched the entirety of this show, and after I finished, I was shocked. And I'll tell you why. This girl is fucking 13 years old. And here we have some footage from her in the anime in some very precarious situations. I mean, how can you watch this and not feel uncomfortable? Better yet, we have a brother who is in love with his own fucking sister. I mean, what the fuck? I was shocked. I doubted my own self. I felt like a complete idiot, and it literally took me a week to mentally process what I had just watched. And therefore, shocked and disgusted by what I just watched, I decided to never, ever watch anime again. For about a week, after which I found a new anime that's on the list of anime for degenerates. This next anime is an anime mostly referred to as Orimo, but the actual title is very long, as is the case for most animes, and it is Ore no imoto ga... let me look this up. Ore no imoto ga konani kawaii wake ga nai, which translates to my little sister can't be this cute. Yep, it's another anime in the imoto genre. Imoto obviously meaning little sister. The difference, however, with this anime and Eromanga Sensei is that in this anime the main characters actually are related by blood. You can of course imagine the shock I was in when I found this out. So, as any reasonable man would do, I came to my senses, I took a deep breath, and I watched all the episodes of this show. And after watching this show, let me just say that I'm really happy that I don't have a little sister myself, because I don't think I could look her in the eyes anymore after watching this. But let me set a couple of things straight first, because I don't want to do too big a disservice to this anime, because it has a couple of interesting themes that it explores. For example, the roles of so-called otakus in Japan. Otaku is basically a term in Japanese that describes people that are overly interested in anime. And also, this show is not a hentai or anything. It legitimately explores a romance between siblings, which in itself is of course very discomforting. But I have to say that even though that it's very strange that there exists a show about this subject, I kinda enjoyed watching Oremo. It was a really surprising experience to me. We don't really see something like this in the West. And it was also really surprising to me that Japan, of all countries, would explore a subject that is so controversial. And if there is anything that I respect, it's when people explore subjects that are controversial. So, here I was. I had just enjoyed a show about a brother and a sister and their romance. And that was the moment it hit me. I sighed and I accepted myself for who I really was. And I said to myself, I am a degenerate. And I realized anime's got me and it's not letting go. And that's how my descent down the rabbit hole of anime began. After watching Oremo, everything went really fast. And even though I thought to myself, fuck it, I already watched 2 animes about brother and sister love, I might as well stay for some more anime titties. I quickly discovered different genres of anime. I watched a shit ton of different animes. Slice of life, which are basically animes that are set in modern day Japan. Romance animes. Isekais, which are basically animes in which the main character is transported to another world. School animes, animes about superheroes, animes about sports, animes about shogi, which is a type of Japanese chess, and of course my favorite genre, ecchi, which is basically the genre of anime titties. But seriously, some of these genres really had some amazing animes in them. Some were hilarious and some seriously moved me emotionally. I was surprised that an anime could move anything besides my downstairs apartment. And I will share some of my favorite animes with you, but first, some of the quirks of anime. Some things that you need to know when you start watching anime. In the West, when we start a series, it is rarely cancelled. More often than not, series span multiple seasons. That is what I knew of series, and I thought animes worked the same. So this next thing happened multiple times when I was watching an anime. I really enjoyed the first season of the anime, and I was like, oh cool, this anime came out a couple of years ago, let's take a look at season 2. But then, to my horror, I found out that there was no season 2. And that it is not even in production and probably never coming out.
It's not true.
Search your feelings, you know it to be true.
It turns out that this is normal for animes. How the production of anime works is that there is basically a source, which is most often a manga or a light novel. And from that, several chapters are chosen that will be turned into an anime, mostly of 12 episodes. And that's it. There is no season finale, no climax, and not even a promise of a second season. Second seasons do, however, exist, but they mostly depend on initial ratings for that show. So if a show has bad ratings, you'll probably never see a second season of it. Oremo, surprisingly, is one of the animes that has received a full adaptation, which is something that very rarely happens, at least in my experience. So don't get too attached when you're watching an anime, because there is a good chance that there is no second season. And if you do want to know how the story continues, you will have to do one of the most horrible things imaginable. Read. So let me end with a few suggestions, a couple of animes that I enjoyed. Be prepared, however, I have shit taste. First anime, Konosuba, a very funny isekai about a guy who gets stranded in a fantasy world. The story has a lot of elements that are reminiscent of RPG games. So if you're interested in that, I really suggest you watch this show. It is a really funny show. Second anime, 12秒でも恋がしたい. In my opinion, this is a case of don't judge a book by its cover. If you see this, you'll probably think this is some kind of weirdo schoolgirl show. But that's really not the case. This show is about a boy that used to have chunibyo, which is basically a phase that is used to describe early teens who have grandiose delusions. This guy made a complete fool of himself in middle school because he thought that he had superpowers.
間が持たねえ。しかしここで先走っちゃダメだ。中学の時みたいに勝手に一人で盛り上がってたな。前世での出会いと未来の君を思いながら、このメールにありったけの魔力を込めて送る。Love you forever.
And he is now starting high school in the hope that he can forget everything that happened. He then meets a girl who goes to the same class as him who still does have chunibyo. And the show basically revolves around these two characters. And on the surface, this is a light-hearted comedy. But actually, I would say it is more a story about coming to terms with the grief of losing a parent, which is something that really hit me personally because I lost my mother a couple of years ago. So in short, it's really funny, it can hit you emotionally. I really recommend this anime. And then last anime, Odd Taxi, an anime with a pretty self-contained story. If you've watched all the episodes, you've pretty much seen the entire story, so there's no need to wait for a second season or anything, which is a major plus in my book. I'm not going to say too much about this anime because you should really watch it yourself, but in short, the main character is a taxi driver. You'll slowly be introduced to a whole bunch of characters who all tie into the story. Everyone has some role in this bigger story. Nothing that is shown should be taken for granted. Everything is shown with a reason. So with that being said, watch this anime. It's a very good one. And with that being said, we're slowly reaching the end of this video. Anime is truly an amazing medium. I'm really enjoying a lot of the things that I've watched. And while there are of course some questionable animes out there, I think it's really worthwhile getting into anime. I have a feeling there is an anime for everyone out there. But what are some of your favorite animes out there? What would you recommend to new viewers of anime? Let me know down in the comments below. And if I've piqued your interest in anime, come back to this video after you've watched your first anime and tell me what you watched and how it was. But for now, many thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That really helps me out a lot. And I'll see you in the next one.